Good evening and salutations, my Jade fans. So, Sunny and Dex. Alright, let me sit there and try to describe the scene and tell you what's so funny about it. And I don't mean like funny in a ha ha way, I mean more like funny in an interesting way. So, Sunny asked Dex to scare the living bejesus out of Cyrus, scare him to a point where he gets a heart attack and dies. Now, Dex, while the things that he's saying is logical, right? If Cyrus dies, then Robert's gonna sit there and charge you with even more. You already assaulted him, and now as a result of his injuries, he died because of you. Oh, it's the assault charge is going to go to murder one at this point, so that's going to be a really bad idea for you to sit there and carry out. He's going to all of these scenarios. We all know that he's doing that because he doesn't want to sit there and cross that line. He said to Jocelyn, listen, I'll sit there and do a lot of things for Sunny, but killing isn't one of them, right? Sunny puts him to the test, and he doesn't like what he's hearing because all he's hearing is excuses and hesitations. And he's like, yeah, this is not what I pay you for. I got Diane to sit there and cover my ass on a legal setting. I don't need you for that. I need you to sit there and get things done, no questions asked. That's what you are. And now, what I find really interesting about this whole thing is that we know that Steve, aka Jason Morgan, is coming back, the number one hitman. And it just makes me think, did they rewrite the scene? Is this going to be the first of many scenes where he's hesitating and he's questioning Sonny and what is good and what is bad? And, Sonny, Jason was a person for the most part that was like, yo, listen, I need you to sit there and take this person out. Okay, when do you want it? And this is why I always go back to when Jason comes back, Dex is going to get the Xander treatment. I've been watching it since 2000, and I know that when Jason came back the last time, Xander went from number two to being number one. I mean, went from number one to being number two. And that's the same thing that's going to wind up happening in Dex. But towards the end, he does sit there and say, okay, when do you want this done? And when he gets to the hospital, he calls Joss. Why? I think maybe to clear his conscience, or I really have no idea. I found it to be kind of stupid. It's like, oh, let me sit there and call my girlfriend before I practically commit capital murder. Now, while he's, going to the hospital after he finished calling, he sees Nina. Now, Nina and Ava was having a conversation. And there's one point where it almost seemed like Nina was kind of blaming Ava, Smith is saying, oh, well, you kind of reverse psychology me into telling on Carly and Drew about the SAC thing. And I'm like, bro, here's the thing. First of all, y'all were both out of pocket for that, okay? Because let's just sit there and say, even if she did sit there and, give you the idea of doing that, you still did it, right? You still did it. You still made the call. Your life, as far as your family and your husband, was ruined by your actions. But when Ava was sitting there saying, well, I wanted to do that just to make, to try to, I don't even understand, like the overly complex answer that she tried to give Nina, like, oh, well, I was sitting there hoping that you weren't going to do it. And that's why I said it. And it was like, that doesn't make any sense because she didn't have the idea until you put it into her head. So for you to sit there and say, well, I put it out there as a way to, hoping that you wouldn't do it, made zero effing sense to this day. Now she does find out from Ava that, Sonny could be facing charges and stuff like that, for beating a man to death. So at this point, I'm assuming that's, Nina, she goes to the hospital. I'm assuming that she's going to then try to talk to Cyrus to get him to drop the charges, which is going to clearly interfere with Dex and his assassination attempt. This way, he could be like, oh, well, boss, I tried, but the new Mrs. Krentos kind of got in the way. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to sit there and try another time. Hopefully, you'll kind of forget about it to then. But, that's that's what I'm assuming is going to end up happening to keep Dex's hands clean. I don't really understand how is this an appropriate conversation between Diane and Robert talking about Sonny's case. I'm like, bro, you're the DA. She's his lawyer. Why Diane actually let that go on? I mean, I know they was talking like hypotheticals, and Diane was like, well, the town loves Sonny compared to Cyrus. Cyrus is much lower on the totem pole than Sonny is. He's not there bragging, talking about, oh, he's going down for murder one, and or assault and stuff like that, and yada 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 yada. Right now, Robert, you really actually invite this woman to lunch so you can sit there and brag about how you plan on taking down her client. Do you honestly think that this is going to go well in your whatever sort of relationship that you got going on? She didn't touch her food in a while. And she's like, oh, it looks like your food is cold. I mean, you didn't touch it. Were you not hungry? Robert, you have been with many women in your lifespan. And right now, you are coming across as extremely clueless for the so called Chad that you were back in the day. Are you? And she says something along the lines of, when Robert's like, well, I guess, you're going to have a lot of time since you won't be, representing Sonny anymore. She's like, oh, all right. I found other ways to sit there and occupy my time. I'll be very busy, except for with you. And when she said that, I was like, God damn, that seemed like that hurt. I almost felt that. It was like, oof, bro, what are you doing? When did you lose your touch with women that you just could not read the room throughout this entire conversation? It is laughable. You got that going on. I kind of wondered. I was wondering what Esme was going to call Spencer for. I thought he was going to then try to get him, help as far as, getting rid of the charges or whatever. But she was just like in overdrive mode with Ace. Is Ace okay? Is Ace this? Is Ace gay? Is this, that, third? I'm like, boo, I know you're a new mother, but like the family, they got Ace. All right, he's gonna be all right. All right, she was literally like on overdrive, and there was one point where she was talking about Ava and paying for the crimes as far as Jocelyn and Trina. And she was like, well, I don't even sit there and remember that. The alleged crimes that I did. I was like, what do you mean the alleged crimes that you did? Oh, it's court documented that happened. You can't forget that. And here's the thing, just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And it doesn't mean you didn't commit a crime. So this whole, oh, well, these alleged crimes that I so-called commit is, what? Are you? Oh, see, this is exactly why it's like you actually do deserve to be in jail. I mean, granted, they couldn't get you on any of that, but I'm like, this is exactly why you are going to jail and why you need to go to jail, right? So they're talking, and talking. And there's one point where Spencer noticed something to Esme, her mannerisms and everything like that. And he's like, do you remember? He's like, do you remember everything? Like, do you remember who you used to be? And she tried to cover up and says no. And then she says something along the lines of Spence. And that's where she slipped up. That's where she slipped up. And Spencer was like, yeah, you remember who you are. Towards the end, when he had to sit there and relieve the babysitter, Nicholas came there. Now Nicholas was with Ava also, between Nina and stuff like that. And Ava was like, "Hey, listen, we don't have to sit there and worry about any sort of plotting against Esme because she's going to jail for breaking into my house." It seemed like it kind of satisfied him, and so he was like, "Oh, okay, well, I can go now. I'm gonna go now because I'm still a wanted man and everything like that." And Ava's like, "I'm glad I didn't kill you or whatever." Just like, oh, okay. I mean, granted, she never really meant to do it. I mean, granted, even if she didn't mean to do it, she could have killed him, right? But they have this little longing kind of goodbye where it's like you can almost feel like they're gonna kiss, but they decide not to, and then she leaves. I mean, then he leaves, but he does visit um Spencer before he goes. I wonder what they're gonna actually do. Um, I guess the question is because I'm wondering what they're gonna do with the whole Nicholas part because they keep just calling him Adam Huss, which is fine. Um, because it seems like they don't have anything major for Nicholas to do to actually have a reason to put either him as the permanent Nicholas or somebody else in as the permanent Nicholas. What else happened? Jocelyn. Jocelyn Jacks. Jocelyn has a big heart, right? And so, in a lot of ways, I give her props for trying to help out Adam, right? After she talks to Trina, she texts Adam. Adam comes over, and this is where she f's up, right? Because she tells, I guess, one of the counselors or whatever about what's going on with Adam, and he flips the f out, right? He's like, "You snitched on me. I can't get in trouble by my parents." He just goes off, right? In the beginning, he's like, "I'm not strong enough to sit there and deal with my parents and stuff." And I guess on some sort of level, Joss is coming across as a bit naive because, yeah, she grew up in a loving environment for the most part. Her parents loved her, they respected her, they let her make her own choices, but not everyone has that luxury, right? So it's not exactly easy for, other people to sit there and stand up to their parents like she can. But then he flips out. She's like, "Oh no, calm down, this, that, and the third." And I'm like, "Oh, I get that she wants to sit there and try to get somebody else to deal with him because she was like, I'm out of my depth." Maybe the whole ambushing thing was not exactly the best move to make. Because he flips out and he just, he walks out at this point. And I feel like this is where, he's going to start to turn into, psycho and start going after her and stuff like that. Because he's going to blame her for every bad thing that happens moving forward. And this is one of those things where it's like, you may have a big heart, but you can't sit there and help everyone. And maybe you shouldn't, you know? Because some people, their mental health and stuff like that, you don't know what could wind up happening. Unfortunately, she's going to have to sit there and learn that the hard way. Now, Trina Lee, she goes to talk to Curtis, Stella's there, Portia's there, and everything like that. And, Trina is undecided if she should go or not. I really do just want to bring up Taggart because, one of her biggest concerns is he going to be okay? She wants to sit there and make sure, she's kind of undecided, like, "Hey, you may need me or whatever, and I don't want to sit there and go to Paris because of you and, what you may need." And also just like, that's all good and sweet and well, but, Are we just acting like Taggart didn't exist? Did Thanos just snapped Taggart out of everyone's mind? Because no one has sat there and talked about this man in forever. And the last time we seen him, he was in pretty rough shape. So I'm just very curious of I think the last person that he talked to was Jordan. Maybe. Did Jordan forget to sit there and ask Portia like, hey, has anyone seen Taggart? Should we start checking on some bridges? No, we're just gonna just keep continuing with life. Okay, that's I guess that's cool too. Curtis encouraged her to go, and also encouraged her to make this trip about her finding herself, um, more self discovery of who she is, and Spencer will be there when he gets back, when she gets back, which I completely understand. You know, because the whole thing. I mean, granted, yes, he should, he can go and everything like that, but it really should be a time to sit there and kind of discover more who she is. And if he's the one for her, then he'll sit there and wait for her to get back. It's just that simple. So I agree with Curtis. Of course, Portia's not there looking at this like, because they're talking about Esme's trial and stuff like that. So she goes to go to Esme's trial, and Portia, Curtis is like, well, here's the thing. Most likely, Spencer's not going to go if Esme is actually found guilty and she goes to jail because he's not going to want that baby to be left alone. And Portia's like, well, I guess that's kind of a lucky fall for me. It's like he has to stay, so Trina gets to go by herself, and that just kind of works out in her favor, which is fine because it's a lot better than her little snappy ass attitude that she's been giving Spencer. As much as I don't like the character, I didn't like the way she was reacting even more. Because I'm like, no man should have to sit there and be putting up with something like that. No man. Not even Spencer. Now, the one thing I should also sit there and say is Nina blaming herself for Sonny going off on Cyrus. Listen, I may not exactly be Nina's biggest fan, but what Sonny decided to do is what Sonny decided to do. You can't sit there and say, well, it's my fault that Sonny decided to sit there and assault. No, Sonny's a grown ass adult. Okay, you're not responsible for the bad choices and the bad decisions that he sits there and makes. Point blank, period. Sonny has been doing this for a very long time. He is the definition of a career criminal. So, as much as I may not like Nina, I was like, no, don't, no. He's a grown ass adult. He did this on himself. If he goes to jail, that's on him. Anyway, I feel like that's about it for the most part. I can't really think of anything else. So if I missed anything, come to the live stream tonight. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll sit there and talk about all the shows, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Born and Beautiful, Young and Restless. And if you're not a member, make sure you become a member. I do exclusive shout outs for members only once a month, every month, to sit there and thank every single person that has been supporting the channel. I do exclusive live streams only on the weekends and stuff like that. And I also do exclusive videos. And then there's also videos that I do where I put it up for members first before I put it out for everyone else. I'm thinking of some more perks as well. Depending on my schedule, I'm going to sit there and try to do. Because I want people to sit there and get like literally the best out of this membership program. And yeah, I feel like that's about it. But I also feel like I could have forgot something. So, like I said, come to the live stream tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, I'll see you there.